Our topic for today is about sacred images. Let's open our Bibles in Exodus 20, verse 1 to 17. Here we find a story about the Ten Commandments. In Exodus 20, verse 3 to verse 17, you find there all the Ten Commandments. Now, if we focus ourselves in verse 4, here God gives instruction to Moses not to make any graven image or any likeness or anything in heaven above or under the earth. Now, for Catholics, verse 3, verse 4, and verse 5 are all included in their list according to the Catholic tradition in the first commandment. It is grouped in only one in the first commandment because of similarity in one theme, and that theme would be thou shalt not have other strange gods. Now, for the Protestant tradition, verse 4 and verse 5 are grouped together, and they included this in the second commandment, while verse 3 is their first commandment. What I'd like to point out is that the Ten Commandments, the numbering of the Ten Commandments, are not in the Bible itself. What we have in the Bible are verses. So the numbering in the list, based on what tradition you belong, is not in the Bible. So it depends on your tradition, what your tradition would be the commandment number 1, what would be the commandment number 2. So for Catholics, verse 3 and verse 4 and verse 5 was grouped together because of a similarity in the theme, and that is, thou shalt not have strange gods before me. Now, let's move on to 5 chapters later in Exodus 25. Here we have a story about God giving instructions to Moses to make the Ark of the Covenant. Here, in the Ark of the Covenant, God instructs Moses to put carved image of angels on top of the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant is where the Israelites place the Ten Commandments, the tablet of the Ten Commandments, inside. Now, if you have interpreted Exodus 20 verse 4 literally to mean that all images are bad, then you would find this somewhat, verse 25, somewhat contradictory to your interpretation. But if you interpreted Exodus 20 verse 4 according to the proper context, there is no contradiction. Just remember that God does not contradict himself. So you have to really interpret the Bible according to the context. Now, the Israelites would place the Ark of the Covenant when they were during their time period in the desert, where they were on their journey to the Promised Land. It would be placed in the Holy of Holies at the back of the curtain. The Israelites believed that the presence of God is there, and they would know that God is there because of the presence of the pillar of cloud or the pillar of fire during the night. It is interesting to know that God instructed Moses to make these carved images here in the Ark of the Covenant, where the Israelites believe that His presence is dwelling. If we move on to the next, in First Kings chapter 6, this is the story about God instructing Solomon to make the temple. And one of the instruction is to put two giant carved images of angels inside the Holy of Holies. And underneath is where the Ark of the Covenant is placed. Now, but what I mean by giant is that they are approximately estimated to be around 30 feet high. So these are very massive figures. And what is interesting is that what comes to mind is that why would God make carved images of angels wherein God has Himself through angels with Him in heaven? Why would there be a need to make carved images when there is true angels with in the presence of God? So let's give an answer. These carved images were there for a specific purpose because the true angels are invisible and the Israelites would not be able to see them. But having these two large, massive carved images of angels, every time the Israelites would see them, they would be reminded of whose presence is there in the room. God is there, and these two carved giant images reminds them that they are in the presence of God. So, not all carved images are bad. It depends on the purpose of the carved images. So, again, Exodus 20 verse 4 should not be interpreted literally. In Numbers 21 verse 8 to 9, we have here a story of Moses putting a bronze serpent on top of a pole. And the Israelites were instructed by God to stare at this bronze serpent so that they would be healed from the poisonous snakes that beat them. Here we have a story wherein a carved image, a bronze serpent, is used by God as an instrument for healing. They have to stare at the bronze serpent in order for them to heal. Of course, we do not believe that it is the bronze serpent that healed the Israelites. We believe that it is God. But the point is, God here in this story used this carved image of a bronze serpent as an instrument for the healing. In 2 Kings chapter 13 verse 20, we have here a story of a prophet Elisha who has died a long time ago. In fact, he is already bones. And in the story, there was a dead man who was about to be um, buried. And while he was being brought to his grave, accidentally he fell on the grave of Elisha. The moment that the dead man touched the bones of Elisha, the dead man became alive. The dead man rose from the dead. Now, did Elisha have the power to to make the dead come alive? Of course not. Elisha was already dead. So we believe that it is God Himself who did the miracle of raising the dead. But my point here is that God here in this story uses the relics of a saint, relics of a holy person, to perform the miracle. And so our attitude should be, we should be open-minded, and we should not put limitations on how God works. And because God is, nothing is impossible with God. This comes to mind some Catholics, where Catholics have this, they like to um, go to pilgrimages where the relics of saints are, and they would pray to God and ask for the intercession of the saints, and they are hoping that God will also perform a miracle through the relics of the saint. If we move on to the New Testament, in Acts chapter 5, verse 15 to 16, here we find Peter walking through the town, and sick people all lined up on the side, on the corner, on the side of the streets, waiting for the shadow of Peter to pass by them. The moment that the shadow of Peter passed by them, they got healed. All of them got healed. Now, we do not believe that Peter has power to heal, neither his shadow. What we believe is it is God Himself who performs the miracle. But again, we would like to point out that here God uses the shadow as sort of an instrument for the healing of these sick people. In Acts 19, verse 11 to 12, here the story of Saint Paul, wherein face cloths of people, when these face cloths touched the skin of Paul, and these face cloths were brought to the sick, those sick people got well, they got healed. So this face cloth, um, an inanimate object, caused the healing. Of course, we do not believe that the face cloths had power in themselves. We believe it is God Himself who performs the miracle, the healing. But again, as we pointed out earlier, here the face cloth was used by God as an instrument, and His power flowed through the face cloth and made the sick people healed. So we should not put limitations on how God works. Here we are reminded of some um, many Catholics who bring themselves handkerchiefs, and they will rub these handkerchiefs on relics of saints or images of holy sacred images, and they pray to God and intercession from the saints that they would that God would heal them, that God would allow His power to flow through the sacred images or the relics into to these to their handkerchiefs, and they would rub these handkerchiefs on their um, part of their body that have um, um, defects or illnesses. Let's give some other examples. Here we have a picture of a home, and you have the picture of the owner of the home. We can identify who the owner because the picture are there in the walls. If we change the picture and we put this picture, um, we know we get the idea of what the fate of this of the persons living in this home. There's nothing wrong with this picture, but there are some people who do not like to put images like this in their home. And what we would like to point out is that there are some biases. These biases are the ones that cause them to dislike these kinds of picture. Or probably they have interpreted Exodus 20 verse 4 literally. And so they would like to take these images out of their homes. What if we place another image? So this image is the image of the mother of Jesus. And for Catholics, they like to have this image in their homes. But for some people, this image of Mary, the mother of Jesus, is quite offensive to them, probably because of biases, or they have interpreted Exodus 20 verse 4 literally as to mean all images are bad. If on the other hand we place the image of Jesus, the Sacred Heart, still again those biases and preconceived ideas of that all images are bad is the reason why they would like to take these images outside of their home. This picture here, Catholics do this because uh, it is not the statue or the image in itself that they are honoring, but the person represented by this image or represented by this statue. In our modern times, we communicate through using the internet, through Skype. When you talk to the person, are you talking to the image in itself, or are you talking to the person represented by the image in the computer? Of course, you're not talking to the image, you're talking to the person behind the image, or the person represented by the image. And that is also the same for Catholics. When Catholics pray in front of the image, they are not talking to the image, they're talking to the person represented by the image. Just like this, you're not talking to the bird, you're talking to the person represented by the image. Here, you're not talking to the cat, you're talking to the person represented by the image. When we watch television in the news, we hear two people talking. One person, the newscaster in the TV station, and the field reporter whose image is there on the screen. The newscaster is talking to the reporter in the field. Of course, the newscaster is not talking to the image, but is talking to the person represented by the image. Just like this part. So, again, the point here is that sometimes we use images to help us in our concentration, but we do not direct our talk, our conversation to the image, but to the person represented by the image. So, how do we view God? Let's answer this. How do we view God? Do we view God as a God who is a superficial God? Or do we view God as an all-knowing God? If we view God only as though He is a superficial God, then we believe here that God does not look at the heart, but God looks only what is seen externally. But is God like this? Or do we view God as an all-knowing God? If we view God as an all-knowing God, we believe that God does not depend on external things, but God looks at the heart of the person. So let's explore the Bible. What does the Bible say? In 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 7, the Lord does not look at the things that man looks at. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So we have to be careful not to accuse people of committing idolatry, especially when they are not. We rely on our vision, our external of the external appearances of what we see, and we cannot see the heart of the person. So what may appear as though the person is praying in front of the image, but deep inside the person is talking to the real person represented by the image. So the image is there just as to help the person in his concentration while he is talking. So how we judge others is how God will judge us. So we have to be careful not to judge anybody by external standards. In Matthew 7, Jesus warned, "Do not judge so that you may not be judged. For with the judgment you make, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure you get." You don't want God to judge you based on external things, right? So you have to be careful not to judge anybody or accuse someone of idolatry just because what you what may seem to you, what you see externally is actually not what is inside. So we have to be careful with this part. It's not the image, but rather what is in the heart, what the intention is. The image is dependent on how it is used. The point, sacred images are not used to replace God Himself. They are there to serve to remind us of certain things. It helps us in some aspects of our prayer, like on the part of focusing on our prayer. But the problem is, people who hate the church don't listen. Even if you explain to them very well, they don't listen. And then they would come back and ask the same question again. They seem as though they are not interested in what you are trying to explain. But our final word is that it's wrong to accuse someone that is not true. And this is concerning with in relation to the sacred images. So that's the end of our topic. Thank you.